what if, like, the exact 15 minutes you waste every single morning doom scrolling in bed is actually the precise amount of time you need to become fluent in a second language?
Oh, wow. Yeah. That is quite the claim.
Right. But I mean, think about it. You wake up, you grab your phone to check it for, just 1 minute, and then suddenly it's a quarter past the hour.
Yep. It's a very specific, highly localized form of time travel.
Exactly. And it leaves you feeling totally behind before your feet have even touched the floor.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, your brain is already processing like 100 different external demands, and you haven't even had a glass of water yet.
That feeling of starting the day already in a deficit is, well, something we all know. But welcome to today's deep dive.
Glad to be here.
We're looking at this really fascinating transcript from a YouTube video by the channel Speak English with Class. And our mission today is to tackle a highly relatable problem.
Right, which is how to take your English from that B1 intermediate level up to that really coveted B2 upper intermediate level.
Yeah, and specifically by reclaiming those lost morning minutes we just talked about.
And just to, ground this for everyone listening, we should probably clarify what those levels actually feel like in practice.
That's a good idea.
So B1 is essentially survival and transaction. You can navigate an airport, you can order food, you can tell someone about your weekend plans. It's functional.
Right, you get by.
Exactly. But B2, on the other hand, is where you start to actually live in the language. Like you can understand a joke your colleague makes in a meeting.
Oh, that's a huge milestone.
Yeah. Or you can express a complex, nuanced opinion without sweating profusely.
Basically, you stop translating in your head and start just, speaking. But making that jump from B1 to B2 is notoriously difficult.
It really is. It's the dreaded intermediate plateau.
Yes. But the source we are analyzing today doesn't just offer, like, a boring list of grammar rules to get over that plateau. It outlines a morning routine that actually changes the cognitive load of learning.
Which is so interesting. To set the scene for how they approach this, picture a quiet cityscape just before dawn.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
The sky is dark blue, the streets are mostly empty, the traffic hasn't really started yet. The source uses this visual to describe your morning mind as a blank page.
Like, before the notifications, before the emails, before the news alerts start screaming at you.
Exactly. When you wake up, your processing queue is completely empty. The source argues that the first action you take sets the cognitive and emotional tone for the entire day.
Like the first song on a playlist.
Precisely. If you immediately open a social media app, you're training your brain to be reactive and fragmented right out of the gate.
But if you protect that blank page, you can use it for something the source calls a light stretch.
Yeah, the gentle stretch.
Oh, okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because I have a bit of skepticism here, I'm not going to lie.
Oh, let's hear it.
The source suggests that to bridge the gap from B1 to B2, you shouldn't be grinding through really intense, difficult material. Instead, they advocate listening to slow, simple, clear B1 English, but deliberately sprinkling in higher-level B2 vocabulary and idioms.
Right, they call it a light stretch before exercise.
Yeah, but does a light stretch actually build linguistic muscle? I've always assumed that to level up a skill, you need friction. You need intense focus, flashcards, and maybe, a little bit of suffering.
The classic no pain, no gain mentality.
Exactly. Does just listening to easy conversation with a few hard words thrown in actually work?
What's fascinating here is the underlying cognitive science of language acquisition. When you sit down with a giant stack of flashcards and try to memorize a translation list, you are essentially brute forcing isolated data into your short-term memory.
Which sounds exhausting.
It is. It requires a massive amount of metabolic energy. Your brain actively resists it because it lacks context. But this light stretch method hacks the brain's natural pattern recognition systems.
So by keeping the baseline at B1, you're keeping the brain feeling safe. Like, you already understand 90% of what's happening in the story anyway.
Exactly. That safety is the mechanism of action here. When you are listening to a story you mostly understand, your amygdala, the part of the brain responsible for the fight or flight stress response, it stays totally calm.
Because you aren't panicked about getting completely lost in the translation.
Right. Then, when a new, slightly difficult B2 word appears in the middle of that very comfortable B1 sentence, your brain doesn't just shut down.
It doesn't crash.
No. Instead, it uses the surrounding context to solve the puzzle. It ties that new word to the picture being painted in the story and the feeling of that specific moment.
So the context does the heavy lifting, rather than your sheer willpower.
Bingo. And this entirely avoids the burnout that usually accompanies language learning. It's a gentle stretch that warms up the neural pathways without tearing them.
So you move steadily toward B2 without the heavy cognitive weightlifting session that leaves you too exhausted to try again the next day. That transition from theoretical cognitive science to real life is usually where things fall apart though, right? Like, how does a normal, busy person, someone who is already exhausted from their daily responsibilities, actually implement this without failing?
That is the million-dollar question.
Well, the source shares this incredibly powerful anecdote about a woman named Sarah that I think illustrates the trap perfectly.
Ah, yes, Sarah's story.
Yeah, so Sarah works in customer support.
Which means she spends 8 hours a day dealing with complex emotional navigation, problem solving, and just constant communication.
Her cognitive load is at maximum capacity from 9 to 5.
Absolutely drained.
And because of that, her evenings were a total write-off. She would get home completely exhausted and tell herself, I'll study English after dinner.
We've all been there.
We really have. But after dinner, she couldn't bring herself to open a textbook. She was stuck in this awful cycle of immense guilt for not studying, combined with just absolute exhaustion.
It's a terrible feeling.
It is. And the source uses this analogy for feeling overwhelmed that I think is just brilliant. They describe it as having way too many browser tabs open in your brain.
Oh, it perfectly describes how mental RAM works. By 8 p.m., you've got your work tab open, your family logistics tab, your financial anxiety tab, your unread messages tab.
The computer's fan is just spinning wildly.
Right. And then you try to open a high-processing Learn B2 English tab.
And the whole operating system just crashes. You completely freeze.
Yep.
And what do you do when your mental computer crashes? You default to the task that requires zero processing power. You scroll social media.
So Sarah realizes that relying on her evening willpower is just a losing battle. She makes a major pivot.
She changes the game.
She decides to give her freshest, most protected time to English, her mornings.
But she doesn't map out some elaborate, unrealistic 3-hour study block, right?
No, not at all. She simply sets her alarm 15 minutes earlier. She gets on her usual commuter train, but instead of pulling out her phone to scroll, she puts in her headphones and listens to an English podcast.
Just a small shift.
Very small. And later, she adds just a few minutes before her shift starts to open her Notes app and write 3 simple sentences in English.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Sarah didn't try to change her entire life to fit her language learning. She fit the language learning into the life she already had.
That is the key right there.
The physical seat on the commuter train literally became her classroom. She abandoned the fantasy of a perfect, Instagram-worthy morning routine at a pristine desk and opted for something realistic.
And by lowering the barrier to entry like that, she achieved something profound. She became intentional.
Intentional.
Yes, that is a key vocabulary word that the source highlights, and it's critical for B2 learners to understand.
Yeah.
Being intentional, or if we want to use some alternative phrasing, being deliberate or making a conscious choice means that you stop moving on autopilot.
Autopilot is your thumb automatically drifting to a social media app the second you sit down on the train.
Yes, autopilot is allowing your environment to dictate your actions. Being intentional means pausing for 1 single second and choosing to open a podcast instead.
It's a micro decision, but it fundamentally shifts the trajectory of the day.
It really does.
So if Sarah's deliberate, conscious commute worked so well to break the cycle of evening burnout, what is the actual formula here? The source lays out a 4-step framework they call the English breakfast.
I love that name. It's a highly structured but very digestible routine. Listen, speak, write, and review.
Let's break down this menu, starting with step 1. Listen.
Okay.
You wake up, you leave your phone on the nightstand or put it face down on the kitchen counter, you make your coffee, and you press play on something in English.
The underlying mechanism here goes right back to that blank page concept we discussed.
Right, the empty processing queue.
Exactly. During sleep, your brain has cleared out the metabolic waste from the previous day. So if the very first data you feed into that clean system is an English conversation or story, the brain allocates premium resources to processing it.
That makes a lot of sense.
You absorb the cadence, the rhythm, and the vocabulary much more deeply than if you tried to force it in after a long day of work.
The sponge is totally dry, so it soaks up everything.
Precisely.
Okay, so step 2 is speak. The source refers to this as a small gym for your mouth.
Yes.
They make the argument that you can't just watch other people exercise on YouTube and expect to get cardiovascularly fit yourself.
Right, you have to do the work.
You have to physically produce the language by repeating sentences out loud. But I want to pose a hypothesis here.
Go for it.
I've always felt that talking to yourself in the bathroom mirror while holding a toothbrush feels, honestly, slightly ridiculous.
It definitely can feel silly at first.
But I'm guessing this has less to do with the actual words you are saying and more to do with the physical motor skills of your jaw and tongue. Like a baseball player taking swings in a batting cage before a game.
That is a perfect analogy. Speaking a foreign language is not just a mental exercise. It is a highly complex physical motor skill.
Wait, really? Just the physical movement of it?
Oh, absolutely. English requires your tongue, your lips, your vocal cords, and your diaphragm to coordinate in physical shapes and movements that your native language might literally never use.
So when you stumble over your words in a real conversation, it's not necessarily because you don't know the vocabulary. Your mouth literally doesn't have the muscle memory to form the sounds quickly enough.
Correct. The neural pathway from your brain to your vocal tract just isn't paved yet.
Wow.
So when you practice speaking in the morning in the privacy of your bathroom, you are doing batting practice in a completely safe environment. No one is watching, no one is judging your accent or your grammar.
You were laying down the physical muscle memory.
Exactly. So that later, when you are in a high-pressure situation like a business meeting, the physical act of producing those sounds happens automatically.
You are totally removing the physical friction of speaking.
And this raises an important question. If speaking solves the physical muscle memory, how do we solve the structural formatting of the language in our head?
Right, because stringing together a coherent, complex B2 thought requires completely different cognitive load.
Which bridges us perfectly to step 3, the English breakfast, right?
Right. Now, the source talks about writing in English in the morning, but I want to make sure we don't just gloss over this part.
That's crucial.
They say it makes you mindful. But how does writing 3 simple sentences on your phone actually do that?
It comes down to the shift from passive consumption to active recall.
Okay.
Think about it. When you are listening to a podcast, you are a passenger in the car. The host is driving the conversation, and your brain just has to follow along.
That's easy enough.
But when you are prompted to write, you are suddenly put in the driver's seat.
Oh, right. You have to actually search your mental database, retrieve the vocabulary, figure out the grammar rules, and construct the sentence yourself.
That shift from passenger to driver forces a state of high cognitive awareness. That is what it means to be mindful.
Mindful. Got it.
Or, to use some synonyms, to be intensely aware, highly observant, or fully present. You are forced to notice your internal thoughts.
So you're awake inside, basically.
Exactly. The source suggests taking a moment to ask, what am I actually feeling right now? What are my goals for today? And then expressing that internal state in English.
So you aren't just copying sentences out of a textbook. You are translating your actual lived experience into the target language.
Yes.
That makes the vocabulary emotionally relevant, which I imagine makes it much stickier in the brain.
Highly sticky, because you are mapping the English words directly onto your personal reality, rather than a hypothetical scenario in a workbook.
Okay, so we've listened, spoken, and written.
The final step of the English breakfast is review.
And I think this is the step that everyone, myself entirely included, wants to skip.
Oh, it is the most frequently skipped step, without a doubt. And ironically, it is the only step that guarantees long-term success.
Really?
Yes. The source emphasizes that learning new words without reviewing them is basically a waste of time.
Because they just fade away.
Exactly. Scientifically, this maps onto the Ebbinghaus forgetting curve. If you learn a new B2 idiom on Monday and you don't look at it again, your brain will literally discard it by Wednesday to make room for new information.
The brain is just ruthlessly efficient at deleting data it doesn't think you need.
It is.
So how do you convince the brain that you actually need it?
Through spaced repetition.
Okay, so going back to it.
Right. When you take 5 to 10 minutes in the morning to review the vocabulary you learned the day before, and then maybe again a week later, you are sending a biological signal to your brain that says, do not delete this, we are using this.
It's not about intensity, it's about frequency. The source uses the word consistent here.
Yes. Consistency. Being reliable, maintaining a steady rhythm. Think of it like compound interest in a bank account, or building a callus on your hand.
You don't build a callus by lifting a heavy weight once for 5 hours.
Exactly. You build it through tiny Bailey moments of friction.
So what does this all mean? We've got this structured 4-step routine. Listen to fill the empty processing queue. Speak to build the physical motor skills, write to switch from passive to active recall, and review to signal the brain to retain the data.
That's the menu.
But the source makes a very compelling argument that the return on investment here goes far beyond just passing a B2 language test.
It really does.
Implementing this routine fundamentally alters your psychological state for the rest of the day.
It acts as a buffer against the chaos of modern life. I mean, think about the psychological baseline of someone who starts their day doom scrolling.
It's not great.
No. They enter the morning feeling distracted. Their attention has already been fragmented into a dozen different directions by algorithms designed to cause outrage or anxiety.
But when you protect those first 15 minutes and execute the English breakfast, you experience a massive psychological shift. You transition from feeling distracted to feeling productive.
And importantly, the source doesn't mean productive like a robot churning out spreadsheets.
Right. It means productive in the sense of self-efficacy. You did something meaningful for your own personal growth before the world demanded anything from you.
That sense of agency is incredibly powerful. The source also uses the word refreshed.
I love that word.
When you engage in this kind of deliberate learning, it feels like rebooting a sluggish computer or finally opening a window in a stuffy, overcrowded room to let the cool air in. You give your brain oxygen.
And the final piece of that emotional ROI, you feel energized.
Yeah.
I love the tech metaphor the source uses here. We all know the sheer panic of seeing your phone battery flashing red at 10%.
Oh, it's a very visceral stress response.
Right, but if you plug that phone in for just 15 minutes, it might jump to 60%.
True.
It isn't perfectly full. You might still be physically tired from a bad night's sleep. But you are no longer in the red zone. You have enough juice to face the day. That is what this routine does to your mental battery.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, what we're really talking about here is dismantling a very toxic myth about learning. There is a pervasive cultural idea that mastering a second language, especially getting to those advanced B2 or C1 levels, is entirely dependent on natural talent.
Oh, yes.
That some people are just born with an ear for languages and the rest of us shouldn't even try.
It's a very convenient excuse to not do the work.
It is. But this source completely shatters that idea. They argue that the people who actually succeed in language acquisition are rarely the ones with some innate magical talent.
They are simply the people who exercise discipline.
They are the ones who quietly show up. While everyone else is hitting snooze or scrolling through a feed of terrible news, they are listening to a 5-minute podcast.
While others are zoning out on the train, they are physically whispering English sentences to themselves to build that muscle memory.
They understand that small, deliberate actions compound over time. The source beautifully compares this to tiny drops of water that over time can carve a solid rock.
It's like turning a massive ship. You don't yank the steering wheel all at once. You make a 1-degree adjustment. It doesn't look like you're changing course in the moment, but a week later, you are in a completely different ocean.
Exactly. Or, to bring it back to the vocabulary we've been exploring, it is the power of being intentional, consistent, and mindful.
It's the conscious choice to step out of the current of autopilot and take control of your own cognitive development.
Every morning offers a fresh start to drop another bit of water.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, we want to leave you with a very direct challenge.
We do.
Do not throw away your mornings. The time between when you open your eyes and when you start your official duties is not just a chaotic countdown to survival.
It is a highly protected, biologically primed window to build your future.
And you can start tomorrow by just taking a few intentional bites of that English breakfast. Listen, speak, write, and review.
And we want to pass on an exercise directly from the source material. Think back over everything we've discussed today. The cognitive science, Sarah's commute, the batting practice for your mouth, the mental RAM.
All of it.
What specific vocabulary word or concept, whether it's intentional, deliberate, mindful, consistent, or spaced repetition, stood out to you today?
Be bold with it.
Yeah.
We challenge you to construct just one simple, authentic sentence using that concept today.
Write it in your notes app.
Say it out loud in the mirror while you brush your teeth. Take the driver's seat and physically produce the language.
And as you do that, consider this final provocative thought. The source doesn't view English as a school subject to be graded. They describe it as a key.
A key that opens doors you might not even be able to perceive clearly yet.
Exactly. Doors to entirely new career trajectories, to global relationships, to travel, and to a profound sense of internal self-trust.
If this new, deliberate 15-minute morning routine is the daily friction required to slowly carve that key? Wait, scratch that. If this routine is the friction required to carve that key, what is the specific hidden door in your own life that you are preparing to unlock without even realizing it yet?
It is a question really worth carrying with you.
It really is. So tomorrow morning, when you wake up and your hand automatically reaches out for that phone on the nightstand, pause.
Remember the blank page.
Don't let those 15 minutes vanish into the void. Make them count.